This is Algebra 1, Section 2.4, and this is all about different kinds of formulas. Now, we're going to do two different types of problems. The first one is formulas where you actually have numbers to plug in, and most students find that those are definitely the easier type. So if you look with me at number 1, it says if the perimeter of a rectangle is given by, and then we're given this equation, and what that represents is perimeter equals 2 times the length plus 2 times the width. It says find the width of the rectangle shown below if it's known that the perimeter is 293. And so what I suggest to students is we're just going to plug into this equation. So I'm going to put in 293 for P, which is perimeter. So 293 equals 2, and then that means 2 times L. And if you look over at the picture, we know that L is 127. So 2 times 127. And then to finish out the equation, we're going to say plus 2w. Now, I'm going to strongly discourage you from just trying these problems without writing the equation. I know you could do these without the equation because a lot of you have computational skills along with a calculator that you could do this. But the whole point of number 1 and 2 is to really take us to problems like 3 and 4 where you're not going to be able to use that same method. So I really want you to focus on writing out the formula just like I am and then plugging in numbers. Okay, so now if you want to on your calculator, you could go ahead and do the 2 times 127. So we've got 293 equals 2 times 127 is going to be what? 254. And then we still have plus 2w. So now, if I want to solve for w, just think of this as an equation like we've been doing for the past week. Start by subtracting the 254. If I subtract 254 from the left, I'm going to get, let's see, what will that give me? I think, does that look like 39? Check my math. If we subtract 253, that would be 40. So yeah, 39. And that equals 2w. And then if you want to solve for w, just divide both sides by 2. So w equals, and it's fine to use your calculator on these for computations. So w is going to equal, let's see, what is that, 19.5? You can always check my math on the calculator. So I found w, but have I answered the question? It says find the width of the rectangle. Okay, great. We answered the question. If you look down at number 2, it says suppose that the area is given by the formula area equals length times width. So it says find the length of the rectangle if it's known that the area is this 2,419. So again, I'm going to plug this in for my A. So I'm going to say 2,419 equals L, which I don't know, times W, so times 39. And maybe a better way to say times 39 would be to put the 39 in parentheses. Okay, so now if I want to solve for L, wouldn't I just divide both sides by 39? And again, I'm going to let you do the calculator work, so I'll do this one more with you, but after this I'll let you do all the calculator. So if I do the work on my calculator, 2419 divided by 39, that means the length is, and we always round to the third decimal place. So if I round to the third decimal place, I'm going to get 62.026. So L equals 62.026. Okay, so that's when we have numbers to plug in. What we're really heading for are, well, let's see, I guess we still have numbers to plug in. So if we look at number 3, substitute the given values into each given formula. All right, so number 3, we're told that this is a distance formula. D stands for distance, R stands for rate, T stands for time. I'm going ahead and giving you the names of these formulas because these are ones that maybe you've seen before, but as we move forward, you need to kind of remember these formulas because they're going to gradually come up. Okay, so in this case, it says we're supposed to plug in the variables we're given and then solve for whatever's left over. So if I put 150 in for D equals, and I'm going to put 70 in for R, so that would be 70 times T. So in order to solve for T, wouldn't you divide both sides by 70. So t equals, and again, I'll let you do the calculator work and see what you get, and you can write down the decimal. Okay. On number 4, area of a circle. So I'm going to plug in r. I'm going to plug in 5.7 for r. So I'm going to say a equals, now pi, I know you recognize that as 3.14 from the old days, and it's true, it is 3.14, but since we're using a calculator, I don't want us to type in 3.14 because that would be rounding. We're going to actually use the pi feature on the calculator, and I'll show you where that is in just a minute. Okay, so in place of r, we're going to put 5.7, but notice that r is being squared, right? So that means when I put in my 5.7 for r, I need to square my 5.7. Okay, let me move this out of my way for a second. So I'm going to put in 5.7 for the r, but then that's being squared. Okay, so let me show you how to put this into your calculator. Just a second here. All right, there we go. So I'm going to type in pi and then times 5.7 squared. Let me move this over here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go to my home screen here. So I'm going to type in pi. If you'll notice the little blue pi right above that little caret, so that means it's a second and then the little caret. So that's my pi. And then I want 5.7 squared, and I can type it in exactly the way I see it right here. So I'll put parentheses, 5.7, close parentheses. And you'll notice this key over here on the left side where it says x squared. If I click that, that's going to square the 5.7. And so if I do that, it's going to automatically plug in the 3.14 and actually the full 3.14, blah, blah, blah. And that's going to give me rounded to the third, so 102.070. So A equals 102.070. Okay, so look at number 5. This represents the area of a trapezoid. So I'm going to plug in everything they give me. So in place of A, I'm going to put 100. So 100 equals 1/2. H, they tell me, is 5. So that's going to be 1/2 times 5. And then capital B, they don't tell me. So that's the one I'm trying to solve for. So I'll leave my capital B. Plus little b is 9. Okay, so in order to solve this, first of all, I'm going to think about this 1/2 times 5. That's just 5/2. So I've got 100 equals 5/2 times b plus 9. And now if you pull out your solving skills, like we learned the last week or so, I need to distribute the 5/2. So I'm going to have 100 equals 5/2 times b. So 5/2 times b plus, and then I need 5/2 times 9. Now I know you could pull out your calculator, but if you think of this as 9 over 1, and you multiply straight across, isn't that just going to be 45 over 2? Again, pull out the solving skills that we've been using the last several weeks. We said, hey, in order to get rid of fractions, you can multiply both sides by the common denominator. So I'm going to multiply everything on both sides by 2. So on the left side, 2 times 100 is 200. On the right side, remember when you multiply 2 times the 5/2, it's just going to cancel the 2. So you have 5b plus, when you multiply the 2 times the 45/2, it's just going to cancel the 2, and we have 45. Now it looks like something we're a little more familiar with as far as doing the solving. So if I want to solve, I'm going to move this down a little bit. If I want to solve, I'm going to subtract my 45. So if I subtract 45, that's going to give me 155 equals 5b. And last step, divide by 5. So b is going to equal, I think that'll be 31. Okay, so we're having to practice our solving skills, but they gave us all the numbers we needed. All right, here's where things kind of step up a little bit. And here's where they become very similar to a lot of SAT and ACT questions. In fact, these are usually the #1 most missed for SAT questions of the entire test. Okay, so this time we don't have numbers to plug in. but we still want to solve for a particular variable. So when you look at number 6, it says we want to solve for w. That means, let me make this a little bigger. That means I want to get this w by itself. Okay, well, we use the same solving skills. If there's anything being added or subtracted, great, I would get rid of that. In this case, there's not. So what do I need to get rid of? The L and the H. Well, right now, isn't W being multiplied by both the L and the H? So in order to get rid of something that's being multiplied, don't you divide? Well, I want to divide. All right, come on, pen. I want to divide by both the L and the H, right? Because I want to get rid of both L and H. All right, so I'm going to divide both sides by L and H. Divide both sides by L and H. And you'll notice on the right, the L's cancel and the H's cancel, and all I have is W. And on the left, I have V over LH. Now I know that looks ugly, but have I solved for W? Yes, it's by itself. So that's how I know I'm done. Remember, solving for a variable means get it by itself. Okay, so look at number 7. I'm trying to solve for capital B. So capital B is different than little b. I'm trying to solve for capital B. So in general, when we use our solving skills, don't we first of all get rid of any parentheses? So let's do that. So I'm going to say A equals, now this 1/2 times H is being multiplied by both the capital B and the little b. So I'm going to distribute. So I'm going to have 1/2 H times capital B plus 1/2 H times little b. And when you multiply, you just write them next to each other. Okay? Think about your solving skills. How do we get rid of fractions? Well, we multiply everything all the way across by the common denominator. All the way across by the common denominator. And so what I'm going to end up with on the left is 2a equals, when I distribute this 2 to the first term, it's going to cancel the 1/2, and I just have H times B, capital B. And when I distribute the 2 to the second term, bring down your plus, it's going to cancel the 1/2, and I just have H times little b. Okay? Keep in mind, what are we trying to solve for? We're trying to solve for capital B. Okay, so when you're solving, remember, if there's something being added or subtracted, that's usually what you get rid of first. So notice this H little b is being added, so I'm going to start by subtracting that. So I actually have 2a minus whatever H little b is, and that equals H capital B. Okay? And then my final step, again, if I'm trying to get that B by itself, I'm trying to get rid of the H. Since H is being multiplied, I'm just going to divide by H. And so remember, whatever you do to one side, you have to do the other side. So I'm going to divide this entire thing by H. So they cancel out, and all I have left is that B equals 2a minus HB all over H. Now, after you write that down, I'll kind of mention something to you. On that last step, some people might say, whenever they divide by H, they might say, well, why do you divide this whole thing? Why don't you do them separately? And what I would say is it's the same thing. If I think of this as dividing every single term by H, then what I end up with is B equals 2a over H minus HB over H. And if you compare that to what we got right here, remember how I asked you before, what is it that's being divided by H? Well, isn't it both the 2a, so 2a is being divided by H, which is what you have in your first term, and what else is being divided by H? HB. Well, isn't that what you have in your second term? So I would say these two answers are equivalent, and I don't care which way you write it, whichever makes more sense to you. Okay? So let's step up our game a little bit here. Look at number 8. We want to solve for A. We want to solve for little a. So identify where that is. Here it is. Okay, I want to solve for little a. So again, if you think about any equation that we're trying to solve, don't we usually get rid of what's being added or subtracted first? Well, this 2xy is being added, so I'm going to subtract that 2xy. I'm going to subtract it, so m minus 2xy equals ab. I guess I should make this look like capital M. I don't want you to think I'm using them interchangeably. And again, I know that's ugly, but what am I trying to solve for? I'm trying to solve for this little a. So how would I get rid of the b? Well, since I'm multiplying by b, to get rid of it, wouldn't you divide by b? So you can either think of it as dividing the whole thing by b, or if it makes more sense to you, you can think of it as dividing every single term by b. And so what we end up with is a is by itself, and that's going to equal m minus 2xy, and they're each being divided by b. Okay, so I have a by itself and all that mess on the other side. All right, so number 9. This is one that we're going to end up doing a lot this year, this type of problem. So this one says I want to solve for y. All right, so find where the y is. Here's the y. I want to get that y by itself. So we always start by whatever's being added or subtracted. So I'm going to subtract that 2x. So I'm going to have 3y is going to stay. If I subtract the 2x, it's going to be 6 minus 2x. And then if I want to solve for y, I'm going to have to divide everything by 3. So divide everything by 3. So y equals 6 over 3 is 2 minus, and I can leave it as 2x over 3 if I want, or if I prefer, I can think of it as 2/3 times x. They mean the same thing. So either way you want to write this is fine. Okay, so we're going to call section 2.4 just these formulas and stop right there. And I've actually kind of adjusted, and basically I'm going to include all of this with the next section.